small question here, and also it's part of the interview with Jeff. Are we parading security holes? Is that really what we're doing? Are we saying, oh, this is so cool, this is the sexiest part of our business, is looking at security holes, and that's really where people are actually getting embarrassed. Oh, I coded that stuff. Is this part of the problem?
Well, again, I would say, again, define we. I think we in the AppSec space like to parade the security
okay,
holes.
let's say the 5 of you. Are you parading security holes?
Not at the moment.
But tonight.
Where's your black hat? So, I certainly am not. Not that, I mean, if I find a flaw in a commercial product, I tell the vendor and responsibly disclose it and it gets fixed. Most of the time when I find flaws, it's on contract to a customer, so I give it to them, and then if they tell the vendor or not, I have no idea. Now, if you want to get famous in this space, that's the way to do it, though. So, I mean, there's an obvious economic benefit to parading holes, because, like, I don't know who the guy was in Black Hat last week, or whatever the conference was that found the struts and spring flaws, but now he's a pretty famous guy. Now, he might have been famous before, I don't know, because I don't know who the guy is. But, it went around the world. Like, everyone, there's a struts and spring flaw. Every app with struts in it is vulnerable today. Oh, my God, Now we see Jeremiah and our snake with clickjacking. I mean, they didn't discover a specific flaw. They discovered a whole new class of problem. Now, in that case, if you discover a new type of attack, you've got to tell the world about it. You can't go, ooh, wow, this is really nuclear bad. Well, let me just bury this over here and never tell anyone, because someone else will find it. And so you got to get it out there. You got to get people knowing about it. And they got to work on fixing it. I mean, because we write all kinds of tools. Like, we've got test tools at OWASP, right? Oh, that's really bad. The bad guys can use them. I'm like, well, they got their own tools that are better anyway, so it doesn't matter. So, yes, we are. I think that's a fact of life. I don't think that's anything we can do to change that, because being famous always has a certain amount of value, right? So, that's not my style, but that's me. But that's okay.
I think there's a small distinction in that question. I think John's comment was that, of course, we should publish the security holes. We should make the world aware of them. However, what's our attitude? Who's there really a sexy guy in the room? Is it the one parading the security hole and go, oh, wow, that's the alpha male around? Mm-hmm. Or are we giving the same respect to those that are talking about, yeah, we could do this and this and this to avoid to make our better quality, to avoid security issues? Are we giving the same, like, street cred to defense side or attacks as attack side?
Yeah,
I don't know. I'm trying to give street cred to those who actually do jobs to avoid issues rising up.
But not very sexy.
and I have to compensate for other ways.
Yeah, I think framing holes in specific products, there's definitely a line there that's beneath trust. But especially when we put security vulnerabilities in the context of OWASP and web applications. Web applications are very different from many other types of software in the IT industry and other types of security, in the fact that the majority of the companies out there are writing their own applications. So a lot of these vulnerabilities and a lot of these holes, I think that some of us need to get on top of the buildings and start shouting and yelling and making people aware of these, because we have to stop the developers from making the holes. We have to start making the companies with their security teams to be knowledgeable about how to find these issues and how to address these issues and how to remediate them. Maybe we're not creating quite enough around the web application security. Would be my suggestion. And once again, that's not talking about all of the specific product, but in general.
Mm-hmm.
So I wouldn't say that we are parading security holes, but I would say that we're trying to be as transparent as possible in how we handle security holes when we are made aware, and how we handle the patching and also the updating all these possible kinds of customers, because there's a lot of processes that needs to be in place as to handle these fixes as well, not just only making a patch that works.
Okay, so I'd actually like to show you some statistics. So if you would just turn around and you can comment on them, because we've been providing some training here in Sweden in application security, and we've done statistics on what do they think about this and how does it work in their actual projects. So this has been done on people who have actually got funding for going for security training. So that's the bias of it. So in this study, 108 students, 45% of them claim they develop security critical code on a regular basis. A little bit about them. A majority of them had 5 to 10 years of experience in software engineering. Some of them had up to 35 years of experience, so that's pretty much. Just to give you a hint of what these people do. Mostly Java, and you can see a lot of JavaScript, of course, too. The background of these people. We asked them, okay, have you been working with security? And we tried to give them categories and yeah, access control. I've written some code about that. And I've done some kind of code audit and analysis. But then attack prevention, enforcement of policies, not so much. Not so much security testing either. And we also asked them, have you had any previous training? 72% no previous security training, and 45% of them said, I develop security critical code on a regular basis. And then we asked them the final question, which is the interesting one. This is just background. How is security prioritized in your projects? And this is how it looks. So on a falling scale, we have features that were specified. We have availability and uptime, usability, performance, maintainability, and then along comes security and privacy, which is just about the same as features not specified, but likely to be needed. So, your comments on this?
I'm not surprised.
Everybody saw that Python was greater than Ruby, right?
Okay, I can comment on my experience as an architect for software systems. What I found that when you develop a new system, that's kind of a maturing process on what non-functional requirements you take seriously. That's not write down in the requirements document, but actually take seriously. And first of them, always response time. Oh, this search page is too slow, speed it up. Whereafter people start caring about capacity. We have to serve a lot of simultaneous user. Whereafter people start caring about availability. The system should be up. Whereafter they care about reliability. They should be doing what it should. And thereafter they start caring about security. Now I mean just not saying, yeah, we care about security, but actually taking the pain and formulating security requirements that might have different access control, etc. So I think it's a maturity process that almost every single system passed through. So I'm not surprised that security and privacy is down that list, because that's kind of the end where you reach. When you've matured so much to care about security, then you've taken all the other non-functional requirements into concern. That's just my experience on observation.
Well, one of the things I was mentioning in my class yesterday, and one of the Google guys that talk was mentioned the same thing, is like when you first start off with your application, if we take web as an example, I want to build a new website and I want to be successful, right? Is security your priority one at the beginning? Absolutely not. Absolutely. Growing as fast as possible is absolutely your number one priority, right? So if security gets in the way at all and slowing you down to build the software or getting developers, making it harder to build it, then it's gone. Absolutely. It's like zero security is almost better than anything else at the beginning, right? Which might sound strange for me, coming from me, right? But then as it finally grows and you get a big enough market where you're actually successful and the people who are using it actually care about their content, now security starts to become important, and then now you have to add it in, right? So like the Google guy in the virtualization talk was illustrating exactly that. They're saying at the beginning you have kind of a wide open policy, and over time you need to start tightening it down as it matters. And so it's actually a reality that most websites have to go through that life cycle of I don't really care, and now I'm big enough to care, or I'm dead, and it doesn't matter anyway. And so dealing with that kind of growth, and especially on these social networking sites, is a huge problem for them because they have to bolt on security later. And so, I mean, that's a reality for them, right? And that's the right business model. And if I come in and say, oh no, when you get to huge, you're going to be, you know, in big trouble if you didn't do it from the beginning, they're going to be like, yeah, but I'm not going to get there if I focus on that now. So that's a reality.
So I agree with the idea of when you're starting off, you can't afford to care about security basically, and then as you go, it needs to go up. But I don't know if it goes from like a binary, like they don't care to like having to care.
It's not 0 to 1,000,000, but you get the point.
Yeah. I just mean I think that the important part and the part that I see is the gradient where you know over time you ramp it up, and so this may represent actually what we should be at, right, or where things ought to be, right, in terms of how many developers out of 108 care about security just based on the average size of their companies or where their companies are at and their maturity curves and so forth. But yeah, I mean, I think that, well, I actually have one question for you, which is, was the 45% of that answered that they developed security critical code, was that before or after you gave them training?
After. This is part of the feedback form.
Okay. Yeah. So even at the end, only 45% thought that the code they wrote would have some security impact. Well, that's a little disappointing, but.
I agree on this table. I don't find this table surprising at all.
No, it's not surprising, but still, it's part of the.
The previous table is what blew my mind. The number of developers without any previous security training, and the numbers, the percentage.
This one, yeah.
That's surprised you?
No, I guess you put it like that. No, I mean, but I would say if we take back to our previous context, are we failing? This might be one area that maybe we should start spending.
You need to do more than 20 classes per
I'm
year.
personally not failing at that mission because I've been doing 20 classes a year for the last 10 years. But what percentage of developers do you think actually have had any security training? I bet you it's like 5%, maybe 10% on the planet. I mean, it's a small number.
So here's a question our university saying.
Well, that's a whole different problem. I mean, it's an area where we definitely need to introduce a topic, but every time, and I've tried many times, but they're all like, well, our content is full. We already have 4 years of content. Now you want to add security in there? Well, what are we going to get rid of to make room for it? And you're like, oh, well, it should just be done throughout it. And they're like, well, at the beginning, they don't even know how to write any code at all, so we can't start with security until they're a junior or senior, and then even then it's hard.
But to that point, just a real quick comment about that. To that point, I don't think universities are failing because if you look at the average populations that you have at most developers, at most development shops, how many actually have a college degree in computer science? How many are formally trained to be programmers? As an industry, we let lots and lots of people write code that have no training to actually do that properly. Which I'm not a degree bigot. I'll tell you that right now. But some of the most brilliant programmers I've met don't have degrees. But still, we don't really have a formalized, criteria for what it takes to be a developer. I mean, if you can sling some Perl, we'll call you a developer and give you a job, right? It's not exactly a good intake model, right? If you wanted to actually have a bar that you want people to cross as far as their security know-how.
I'd like to phrase an analogous question.
You want this one or next?
Yeah, this one. How many programmers have had previous database training? Well, I haven't. Not in university. Not taken any class at educational institute, something that talks about SQL or databases or table. Still, I do database refactoring on a daily basis. I think I'm kind of fluent on databases. Still, I have not up to date, not had any single training in databases. Could it be the same with the security?
Well, it's certainly a culture thing now, right? Just right now, the culture doesn't expect secure code from developers in general, right? And I think over time that's got to change, right? But the consumer doesn't expect, well, the consumer expects secure code.